Hi there, everybody. Welcome to our open book. Oh, and his name came up first.
Yep.
We're going to talk about The Innocence of Florence, the Renaissance discovery of childhood. Quite a remarkable book with Joseph Luzzi, who's a professor of literature at Bard, has written a lot about Italian culture. Also, we'll ask him about a compelling personal story, and we look forward to talking to him. We've been having some technical issues, so we've got to do something about that now to invite Joe. And there he is, second one down. He should join us very soon. Hi there, darling.
I
Hi
see
there,
lots of
Fanchon.
fingers.
Pardon me?
But they're very nicely manicured. And so the very bottom, hello,
Hi
open
there,
book
Karen
friends,
Smith.
says waiting.
Yes, you're right. That's the good old days, SR. Says waiting.
Is he still on the phone with us?
Rhonda
No,
Scott Mark.
because he got the invitation.
Okay, so hopefully he will click it.
Diana Lynch.
Oh, does this mean it's happening?
Otherwise, I
Well,
can
it
call him
says
back.
waiting for Joseph Luzzi,
Better than Godot.
except Godot. Yeah, all right.
Okay. I'll give it another minute, and otherwise I'll call him back.
Yeah.
Hi there, Mr. Dickens. Mr. Dickens, what do you do during the Olympics? Winter Olympics. Just wondering.
Is it possible we invited the wrong person?
I mean, probably not, because he just subscribed.
Okay.
So God bless if there's two of them. Does he have an identical twin with the same name?
Maybe.
We don't know that he doesn't.
Right. I mean, you could ask me about that.
Will you show the book?
Oh,
Yeah.
he did. He did.
Oh.
But we can do it again.
It says touch-up appearance in music mode.
Yeah, I don't know that we need that, but too bad we didn't have that for Walter Murch. He probably would have appreciated the change in sound.
Okay, I will go call him.
Fabulous. We can ask people about their days.
Yeah, I'm really sorry about. Can't seem to figure out what's happened. So
let me come around the other side and see if he somehow does have an identical twin with the same name. I
am going to, however, start reading from this very good book.
Yes.
That's him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is fascinating.
What?
He can hear us. I've just resent it. We've resent it our co-host. I just resent it right now.
We are resending it.
Are you sure? Because you're not hitting that.
Yeah. Oh, no, I am.
Okay, so let's see if you get it.
See, there are two of them.
Okay, let's try this one.
Yes, I'm here. It turns out there are two people with the same name.
One moment, please. And apparently, sorry, this
one of them is a desperate criminal.
Yes, I don't know him.
Well, of course you'd say that.
I know. I just, in the words of Mariah Carey,
I think you're going to get it.
No, please do not hang up.
No, I'm not hanging up.
I have trust issues.
Where will it appear?
How about that one?
There. Fabulous. See you live in a moment.
Ta-da! Just accept it, though.
This is really exciting, isn't it?
I know. I wonder which one we're going to get, guys.
I think.
Hello.
Hi there.
Oh. Hello, Scott.
Good to be with you. Yep, I'm Scott.
Thank you. So sorry for all the technical difficulties, but here I am.
That's all right. I'm so glad that we can talk to you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So thanks for joining us. It's a remarkable story, The Innocence of Florence. And can we begin with Agata Smeralda?
Poor Agata Smeralda. Yeah, Scott, she's the first child that was accepted into this foundling home, orphanage in the Renaissance in 1445. And little Agata, who died tragically within several weeks of arriving, she started a revolution in childcare because she was the first you could say that she was really the first ward of the state, going back almost 600 years. And after little Agatha, about 400,000 children would be cared for by this Renaissance orphanage. And as I write in my book, it wasn't just a place of care. It was a place where they were taught art. They were given a rudimentary education. The young girls, they tried to find marriages for them. And in the process, they really sort of created, I believe, a new understanding of what a child was. And that, not just an imperfect little adult, but a phase of life to be nurtured and receive sort of the same energy and imagination that went into creating Renaissance art that we love today.
And tell us about Francesco. I'm not going to match your pronunciations. Francesco Dattini.
Oh, Francesco Dattini. Did you study Italian?
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Proud of you.
No, I didn't study the Italian. I didn't study any Italian, but I've seen all
But he's
three
been watching
Godfather
the
films.
Olympics.
Yeah, right. And I've been watching the Olympics. So
Yeah, Francesco Dattini was a remarkable figure. I mean, talk about an imperfect person. He was, I think in my book, I compared him to, in terms of wealth, the kind of the Warren Buffett of Tuscany, someone who I would say probably the wealthiest person of his time in that area. Vast overseas empire, vast sort of empire outside of Prato, where he was from, throughout Tuscany, even international. But he was I say imperfect in that he led a pretty dubious personal life. Let's just say he was not a good husband to his wife. He had extramarital affairs. He had a child with a servant girl, with a slave girl. And toward the end of his life, his conscience really started to weigh on him. That biblical expression, it is easier for a rich man to get into heaven, for a camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. So he started to think about ways that he could atone for his past sins. And he had a really impressive spiritual advisor who said, Francesco, the best way, I paraphrase, but the way that you can ease your path into heaven is by caring for unwanted children. And he ended up making the first donation to create the Hospital of the Innocents on his deathbed. So it's quite a story. He was I call him the God. You mentioned the Godfather films. I call him the Godfather. And I say that in both the sense of a nurturing person, but also someone menacing. So.
Well, and art was an important part of the Home for Innocence, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean the Innocenti had an extraordinary art collection. Some of its children studied painting and actually went on to become famous painters. And courses on painting were offered. And there was a belief, the way I tell my students and anyone who's read the book, imagine you're unlucky enough to be an orphan or someone who's abandoned by their parents, and you walk into a building that was designed by Filippo Brunelleschi with those 9 semicircular arches. And it's as if to say, you cross this line, you leave a life of poverty and chaos, and you enter a realm where people think clearly and are responsive to beauty. And so I think the belief was that the ambient beauty would have a healing effect on these unwanted children.
Adoration of the Magi is in there, right?
The Adoration of the Magi by Ghirlandaio, another amazing Renaissance painter. And that's kind of the signature work of it, because it also kind of gives the history of the Innocenti, some of the people from the orphanage in the painting, and it narrates the massacre of the innocents from the Bible, which kind of became the code story that that this orphanage identified with. So it's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you have this remarkable art. On the other hand, researching the book, I knew the outlines of this, but there was a dark side to the Renaissance. There were a lot of slaves in Renaissance Florence. A lot of these children that ended up in the foundling home were the children of slaves. So while this amazing artwork is being created, there's also this other parallel world of slaves and exploited servant girls who would go to work for wealthy families and often be victims of sexual violence. So it was sort of, as you know, in Renaissance painting, they talk about chiaroscuro, the light and dark.
Mm.
You see both of that in this story.
And what was life like in the hospital of Innocents day to day? Help us understand the scope of it.
Well, they ate a lot of bread, not surprisingly. It's Italy. And, you know,
Bread, salted meat, salted meat twice a week, occasional portion of cheese. Yeah.
So, you know, it was, they always struggle financially. It's like any institution today, there's the kind of glorious opening, the initial donation, and then you got to keep the lights on, right? And so finances were a struggle. But I would say it was, you know, we love the Florentines they made incredible art. But they were also, remember, this is a center of banking. This was a merchant city. So they had a really airtight bureaucracy running it. And it was run like, you know, like a Swiss watch. It was very much a kind of the day-to-day operations were strictly monitored. They have a rich archive detailing every aspect of children coming in. So the way I compare it in the book is, imagine like a huge college campus, right? Where you have all sorts of buildings, all sorts of functions. In a college campus, the main action is education. In this place, it was um, helping these children survive, giving them a trade. The girls were sort of, they were, you know, they tried to give them a dowry. So all those things that went into the day to day included at its peak classes for a lot of the children. So it was a really vibrant place and a kind of microcosm of what's happening outside the walls of this orphanage in Florence as it's becoming the center of the European Renaissance.
One of the points you made, too, a lot of the children were not technically orphaned so much as abandoned.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the technical term we would say is foundling home, you know, a place where children are abandoned. I said that sounded a little archaic, so I use orphanage in a generic sense, but sometimes, you know, the parents were alive. Sometimes one of the most heartbreaking elements of the book is that often a mom would, when she dropped the child off, would take a coin and break it in two and leave half of the coin with the child, keep the other half for herself in the hopes of one day being reunited. Unfortunately, those reunions were few and far between because if your child landed in the institute, it was often, you know, the odds were that things weren't going to get better for the family. But, you know, it really was a microcosm of Florentine society because it wasn't just children from poor families. It was children, they might have had a wealthy, noble father, and the mom may have been a servant girl. It could have been two poor peasants. It was really broadly pitched.
I raised this, Joe, just because you raised it in the introduction. You have a personal tragedy that informed your own life that may affect your vision of parenthood and child rearing. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it is. You know, when my 18 years ago, my late wife, Catherine, had a fatal car accident. And 45 minutes before she died, she gave birth to our daughter, Isabel. And I wrote a book about it. I wrote a book about how Dante's Divine Comedy was a real source of guidance for me, getting me out of the dark wood of grief and mourning. But one of the kind of many collateral issues in something as intense as that is that it was very difficult for me to embrace fatherhood because I was suddenly, as I wrote in the book, I left the house at 8 a.m. to go teach. And then by noon, I was a widower and a father. So I had this child that I had to take care of. At the same time, I was grieving my wife intensely. And a heroine stepped in, my mom, my late mom, Yolanda Luzzi, who was about 80 years old and had 6 children. We were a small Italian family of 6 children and many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. But she announced to our assembled family that she was going to help me raise my daughter. And she did for the next for the next few years. And I had always seen this building. I mean, I'd been to Florence many times, researched there. Suddenly it came alive for me, and I felt all these, as I wrote in the book, the kind of the these salvaged lives kind of coursed through me like an electric current, because I realized I had produced an innocent, my daughter Isabel, who needed unconditional love and care, and a caregiver of last resort, and that was my mom.
Yeah.
And that suddenly connected me to the place in a way that brought this book to life.
Yeah, God bless. How did the Hospital of Innocence, in a sense, kind of create our understanding of childhood?
I think what they did was, you always had a kind of, there was, at the time, religious institutions and hospitals were, abandoned children, unfortunately, is a problem that goes back to time immemorial. So there were places that could help the abandoned child out, but it was never a civic thing. There was never a civic organization like the Innocents of Florence. And so what it did, by subtracting a little bit from being a medical concern or a religious concern, became a civic concern. And that got the best minds of the city involved. All the same Renaissance humanists that are writing the great books, that are creating the great art, designing the great buildings, started thinking about, what does it mean to be a child? It's not an imperfect adult. It's not an unformed Christian, but it's a state that deserves thought. So you had treatises coming out on childhood, treatises coming out in the family, and the Innocents, the Hospital of the Innocents, was the laboratory that put those all into effect. Because if you could get a rudimentary education as a ward of the state, that was something that only the wealthy got back then, the one percenters. And suddenly this Renaissance institution is giving the least advantaged member of society a second chance. And to me, that is such it had many imitators. It became famous as a place where children were there was an expression. Went from being an abandoned child to a figlio di Firenze, a child of Florence.
Yeah.
And is a real kind of, a wonderful scholar, a late scholar from Yale, John Boswell, wrote a book about abandoned children. And he said that the Italian city-states were just as creative in thinking about children as they were in the arts and letters. I paraphrase, but that's the gist of it. And that really, to me, made it the place where that all came together was this orphanage, the Innocents of Florence.
Do we hear children behind you?
Oh yeah. It's right. We're not the audio. I have,
That's fine. I like to hear
It's
it.
lovely.
I have 4 children, and we have a full house. I remarried and was given a second chance at a family and at parenting. And I didn't realize this, and I think this will resonate with you or anyone who writes. We're not really sure sometimes why we write a book, but I realized that this book was, in a way, my indirect memoir of parenting and what it means to be a parent. And I did write about my experiences, but when writing about this orphanage, it was kind of pouring everything, all the intensity that we feel as parents, into the experience of, what it means to raise. As I say in the book, it's true. It does take a village to raise a child, because this was a little village. And
We have a question from Diana Lynch. What was the ratio of boys to girls, and how were they looked at?
That's a great question. The worst thing to the most vulnerable social status you could have in the Renaissance was to be an abandoned young girl, because you when you got married, you had to kind of purchase your marriage a little bit in the form of a diary. So there were more abandoned girls than boys. But what the Innocenti did was try and sort of even those numbers out by taking the girls in and taking the boys in and giving them teaching the boys a trade, getting the girls a dowry, teaching them some important skills to run their household. So slowly the numbers started to even out. But I think in the beginning, the problem of abandoned children was really terrible. The problem of abandoned girls was even worse. So by taking them in, they sort of set a precedent that this was a place for both sexes.
Yeah. By the way, some people are right. I wear this sweatshirt a lot, the Hebrew Orphan Asylum.
Oh, how funny.
Which was, this is actually for the semi-pro ball team this is our friends at Ebbets Field Flannels.
And it's just by coincidence. No.
It is just by coincidence. Yeah, I wear it a lot on Sundays. And in any event, it was founded in 1860. The great Art Buchwald, the great humorist.
That's right. Wow.
At the Hebrew Orphan Asylum, which is now no longer in business, but they also had a great semi-pro baseball team.
Of which we talked about this.
Of which
this is where my grandfather and his brother were raised.
That's right. Maggie's that's right. Our technical directors. Yeah. Oh my God.
It turned out okay.
Yeah. No, it turned out just fine.
I didn't see I saw the word Hebrew. I didn't see orphan underneath it. That's amazing. Wow. Okay. In 1860, that's sort of when some orphanages were springing up in the States. In New York, Alexander Hamilton's widow was the founder of the first private orphanage, and that's really resonant because, of course, her husband Hamilton was himself an orphan. So, I think there's a kind of chapter. An explosion in orphan care. And it's a complicated issue because it had its critics, right? Some people would say you shouldn't be able to offload your children. You should, the state is not the parent. The parent is the parent. And one of the points I made in my book was that while the problem may have been more dramatic 500 years ago in the Renaissance, we're still having these debates because we have baby boxes now in the United States where, and there's where people can abandon children. Each year in the United States, thousands of children are abandoned anonymously. And it's the same terms of debate that people had in the Renaissance. Is it good to have a place where people can leave a child to protect it, or does that create moral hazard that makes it easier to unload a child that parents don't want? So very complicated issue, and I wish we had solved the Renaissance problems, but unfortunately they're alive and with us. Yeah.
Well, I so enjoyed going through this book, The Innocence of Florence, The Renaissance Discovery of Childhood, by Joseph Luzzi, who is also a professor of literature at Bard, right?
That's right. Yes.
And I'm so glad that we can talk to you about it, Joe. Thank you very much for being with us in our open book. Tomorrow we have Beth Ann Fennelly, the former poet laureate of Mississippi, who has a wonderful micro memoir called The Irish Goodbye. You will not be surprised to learn that Beth Ann Fennelly, although the former poet laureate of Mississippi, grew up in Chicago. So we, have made room for that. Wonder why who can tell we're love leads. We're so glad that we can talk to Joseph Luzzi about this tonight. Thank you, everybody. Sorry about technical problems. We got it ironed out and really treasured our conversation. Thanks for being with us tonight on our open book. Take care. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.